You transferred only 63 cents. Am I dreaming or what? The sum of $5,000 is sent to us monthly by Ashley. Who are you to worry about us? I had to take the phone out of my ear because my dad's voice was so loud on the other end. Confusion, embarrassment, and boiling disbelief caused me to freeze. That morning, I had just sent $5,000 to my parents via wire transfer. That sum of money did not magically appear. I had gone weeks without eating, working more than one shift, and getting very little sleep. I felt like I was losing blood with every dime. And now they're saying I treated them like trash. My mother interrupted me before I could answer. Her voice always struck me square in the chest with its piercing, dissatisfied tone. Lauren Ashley's a model. She's busy, but she still finds time to take care of us. You just live alone, spend money, however you like. Do you even think about your family? A part of me began to crumble. Good day, Ashley. Ashley always. Everything about the radiant little girl with the lovely grin and large eyes shone with brilliance. Whenever I attempted to take the lead, it was as if I didn't exist. Yet it was incredibly unjust. The money was sent by me, $5,000. It's something I've been doing monthly. My voice quivered with a mix of frustration and weariness. However, my father was unconvinced. You must cease your deceit. All the money is coming from Ashley, she told us. 63% of that amount was sent by you. It's finished. Stop being so disrespectful. Before I could finish speaking, they abruptly ended the call. Unmoving, my quivering fingers remained pressed to my ear as I remained seated. Why is it 63 cents? I couldn't do that. It finally clicked. We began giving money under the name Rainbow because Ashley insisted on it. Let's make it delightful and under wraps, she had said. At the time, I chalked it up to one of her strange habits. Now I could tell something was wrong. $5,000 had been sent according to my account. This pitiful 63-cent transfer, however, ended up associated with my name. In my hand, I saw my bank app. I had almost depleted my savings. So that I could do my part, I had been subsisting on frozen food and working extra. Why was it done? To face accusations, blame, and humiliation. A scream escaped me. Surprisingly, though, nothing escaped. A suffocating stillness that encircled my neck like a lasso. I knew then that this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. That was treachery. Love, I thought, when I was younger was something you had to work for. If only I were more disciplined. My GPA was perfect. Whether I refrained from expressing my dissatisfaction, perhaps my folks would give me the same disapproving look that they gave Ashley. And yet that expression never materialized. Ashley was born 5 years before I was, and life altered the instant she entered this world. No one had ever seen a more stunning newborn than her. The nursing staff made a sweet sound. Word got around. In supermarket shops, random people would stop us and stare at her. She's going to be a star. My mom would exclaim, her eyes shining as if she had won the lottery. In the meantime, I clung to the side of the cart while wearing a hoodie with another person's name embroidered onto it and a pair of worn-out jeans that were too short. The only reason anyone paid attention to me was to comment on how different we looked. She's very cute, so this is obviously her sibling. Just a moment. Oh, well, her smile is pretty sweet too. Charming grin. That was my entire life. Very well done. Plain, unwanted sounds. Season after season, Ashley sported new threads. She was enrolled in ballet classes, piano lessons, art classes, gymnastics, and whatever other activity she could point to. We were informed that additional items couldn't be funded. You understand right, Lauren, you're the older sister. It was as if that line had been etched into my flesh from all the times I heard it. One winter, I realized I couldn't fit into my one coat anymore. I was advised by my mom to dress in layers, just wear 2 hoodies, it's fine, while she accompanied Ashley to the mall to purchase a new pink wool peacoat and matching gloves. There was no other way to put it. At the age of 8 or 9, Ashley had a temper tantrum while eating dinner. The freedom to choose my own bedroom is what I desire. For many years, I had made the room my office. It was cramped, but it housed my workstation bookcase and posters that I loved. I owned it. On the other hand, my mom informed me the following morning, guilt-free, "You're moving to the living room. Ashley needs space to express herself." As I dozed down on the futon by the bookcase, I felt the weight of my grandparents' old photographs pressing down on me. Sometimes I would weep into my pillow at night, hoping no one would be around to hear me. When I needed someone to really notice me, no one ever did, until my grandparents. I used to spend hours upon hours sitting on Grandpa's lap. He called me intelligent and serene. I was blessed with an old soul. Lauren, like the spring flowers Dad would grow in his yard, is my name that he gave me. They said it represented gentle power. For a long time, that was all I had. That homey feeling, though, faded away when Grandpa passed away. Coldness crept up the walls, slightly more forceful. The bias is more apparent. No one ever asked Ashley to share. No need to inquire. She would take what she wanted and then roll her eyes and say in response to my objections, "You're obviously not making use of it." I once discovered her stealing the gel pens from my drawer, which I had painstakingly stored up for weeks. She grinned at me when I confronted her. "You're so dramatic, Lauren. Chill out." My mom groaned and said when I informed her, "She is not yet an adult. Discard it." I was encouraged to remain strong-willed, even in situations where Ashley was mistaken. "You're the older sister." That sentence keeps popping up, almost like a curse. Because of this, I now know better than to dispute. Ashley had a personal math tutor and a walk-in closet by the time I was 16 years old. I worked part-time at a nearby diner to put money down for my college applications. My parents made fun of me when I told them I wanted to be a school nurse after college. That is out of our budget. Try to keep your expectations in check. How about Ashley, though I knew the answer was going to be yes before I ever asked? Lauren is unique. Avoid making comparisons. They had given up all pretense. Therefore, I decided not to pursue more education beyond high school. Started working full-time in a neighboring warehouse. Because it was too stifling to stay in that place alone, I packed up and moved in with 3 complete strangers. I often find myself wondering what would have transpired had I made a stronger effort. If only I'd made a scene and claimed my rightful position. However, that was not my upbringing. I was brought up to give my all, to persevere with a smile, allow Ashley to take center stage. The worst aspect, though, yes, I took it. It was just ordinary, I told myself. I didn't deserve more, maybe. That being born into stardom is more than enough for some people. Years later, when Ashley called and said I didn't understand, how deeply those roots of guilt had grown in me. It's only fair that we repay Mom and Dad. Let us demonstrate our gratitude to them. The opportunity to be treated fairly eventually broke my heart. To accomplish something as sisters at last. So I agreed. Even though I was dressed for an adult occasion, I had no clue I was returning to the same pitfall. A phone call was the initial step. Ashley had an exceptionally upbeat and friendly tone to her voice. Her speech seemed rushed, as if she were rehearsing. "Lauren, you know what I've been thinking. If it weren't for Mom and Dad, we might not be here today, would we? I mean, they are the ones to thank for all we've accomplished." I was taken aback by that. Ashley seldom ever expressed her appreciation, much less used the words us or her in the same phrase. Continued she, "I would like to take action on their behalf. Quite an enormous object. It has occurred to me that we could split $5,000 monthly. My sincere appreciation. To demonstrate our concern." My heart sank. "How about 5,000? So carelessly did she say it. It seemed like she was requesting that we divide a pizza instead of my entire income. 5,000, I murmured again, unable to hide my astonishment. "Ashley, that's a lot." She responded, "I know, but just imagine the shock on their faces. They will be overjoyed. Splitting it between us, it's really not that much." I trembled. Ashley worked as a model, albeit on the side. While she was a student, an agency scouted her, and our parents made it sound like she was about to become a famous actress. I had the impression that she had money, albeit I was unaware of her specific income. In my previous role as an accountant, I earned slightly more than $3,000 monthly. About $1,400 was my rent, everything from utilities to groceries to insurance. It made my survival extremely precarious. I would have to use my savings to contribute $5,000 per month, and that wouldn't be sustainable. I still wanted to answer yes deep inside. Perhaps I was anxious to demonstrate that I wasn't self-centered. The idea that we were now on equal ground may have lingered in my mind. Possibly all I wanted was to feel loved. Consequently, I consented. "All right," I responded, "it's ours to do." My savings account was depleted in the first month, achieved zero. Although it hurt, I felt good about it. It was as if I had finally accomplished something commendable. After the second month, it became clear that I would need additional funding to sustain this. An hour away from my flat, I worked as a security guard for a building site on weekends. Standing in the cold or heat for 12 hours straight, depending on the sky's attitude, was the worst part of the shifts. I was in continual pain. My downtime was minimal. Spreadsheets and due dates occupied my weekdays. Sunburns and steel boots were my weekends. I managed to convince myself that it was just a passing phase, a matter of months, until I broke through. I went on a diet, gave up on purchasing new garments, stopped drinking coffee in the morning, and gave up Netflix and my gym membership. There were evenings when I dozed off while still dressed with my phone in my hand and the alarms for both jobs set. In the hopes that earning a professional credential would increase my income, I began my studies online. Everywhere I could get 5 minutes on buses in restrooms during lunch breaks, I studied. Despite everything that happened, not a single person ever thanked me. Neither of my parents contacted, did not inquire about my well-being. Photos of Mom's happy face holding her new purse were the only communications I received. They were all relayed to me by Ashley, the father in a steakhouse. She would send a text message with hearts and sparkles that said, "Look at how happy they are." No matter how much I tried to smile at the TV, my chest would twist. To provide for their ease, I was crumbling. It was as if nobody cared. I still clearly recall a Saturday night. Despite the arrival of spring, the evenings remained chilly. I wore 3 layers beneath my outfit while stationed at the building site. Clouds of breath escaped me. I felt an icy sensation in my toes. I could hardly keep my thermos in my trembling hands. When a foreman stopped by during his lunch break to say, "I was surprised to see a woman out here. Am I okay?" Nodding, I was too exhausted to respond. A protein snack and a mug of steaming coffee were his return cargo 5 minutes later. "Here," he remarked, "you should be warmer. You're exerting far too much effort." Not because of the cold, but because of the generosity, I accepted it with shaky hands. No one has laid eyes on me in quite some time. Nobody on staff, not the salary, no one else but me. I sobbed in the car that night. For some reason, it hit me at that moment. Perhaps because I felt more cared for than I had in months from my own family when someone offered me coffee. But I persisted nevertheless. The 3rd month has passed, the 4th. I was able to pass the certification test. It didn't make a huge difference right away, but it gave me optimism, a glimmer of hope that this slog could eventually pay off. The cash, though, it disappeared as soon as I obtained it. Her idea was to establish up a joint account called Rainbow Fund, and Ashley had already set it up. "It sounds nicer," she had remarked, "as if we're sharing a precious treasure." I paid it no mind. Maybe it would have been a better choice. I sent Ashley a text message one night after sending $5,000 for that month. "Hey, just checking, are we both sending from the same account?" Her response was immediate. "Yep, don't worry. I'll handle the technical stuff. You just keep transferring to me, and I'll make sure Mom and Dad get it. Let's keep it a surprise, okay?" I had the impression that it felt turn off. Rest certain I was completely drained, sick to death to battle, far too anxious for tranquility. After making a sign that it appeared to be able to see me, I set my phone down. The disintegration started at that point, as soon as I began to believe another person's falsehood and stopped trusting my intuition. ChatGPT stated, "On a Tuesday afternoon it happened. My workplace phone began ringing while I was in the middle of checking an expenditure report for a client. Yet another time and again, time and again." My parents left 6 voicemails in the span of 10 minutes. As my heart raced, I fixated on the television. Surely something occurred. I could be mistaken. A serious health problem. I detected the 7th ring. My father's voice boomed out of the speaker before I could utter a word. "I don't know what's wrong with you." I was so startled that I almost dropped the phone. "Dad, what's going on? Do you honestly believe that we're completely ignorant? Does this make you laugh? Why is it 63 cents? What the fuck?" That's so offensive. I blinked, my mind racing. "I don't understand what you're saying." Lauren, the cash. "Oh my goodness, you sent 63 cents this month. I thought you were making fun of us." There was a brief moment when I wondered if he had dialed the wrong number. Perhaps he mistakenly assumed I was phoning another number. What am I supposed to do? $5,000 was sent. The same as before. I submitted it on Friday. Stop being a liar. Angry, he let forth a bark. We were shown the statement by Ashley. 5,000 were sent by her. There was a transfer using your name that cost 63 cents. Out of nowhere, everything changed. Breathing became difficult for me. My palms became numb. "Excuse me, but that's wrong. That money is now in the Rainbow account. As Ashley put it away. Your self-centeredness has reached its limit. Everything is handled by Ashley and you. I can't believe you give a hoot about us. Having fun as a single person and blowing your money on who knows what." A shrill, quivering voice my mom's broke in. "Are you familiar with the sensation? Do you know that while one of your daughters takes care of everything, the other gives us pocket change like we're beggars? I despise you." Call ended. In an instant, I remained motionless in my seat. I could hear the distant hum of the workplace from a mile away. A person on the other side of the room was laughing at something on their computer. Rear of me, a printer made a noise. I was paralyzed with fear. Why is it 63 cents? It was impossible. With shaking fingers, I launched my banking app. There was the deal. As usual, $5,000 was deposited into Ashley's linked account and branded Rainbow Fund. In that case, what transpired? Next thing you know, something clicked. Ashley suggested using Rainbow in the first month to ensure anonymity and prevent recipients from knowing who sent what. In my naivete, I had consented, believing it would be endearing. The names that appeared on the recipient's side were not something I had verified. Ashley apparently made sure hers was on every single complete payment. What about mine? One small placeholder transaction, 63 cents, had my name attached to it, seemingly to maintain the account's activity. Perhaps to give the impression that I was taking part. My parents thought I was treating them like garbage, but it appeared like she was giving them $5,000 monthly. It had been planned. Crushingly harsh. I was deeply affected by it. I did not get any sleep that night. With my jaw tightened and chest tight, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I had exhausted all of my resources, helped the folks who reared me by giving up my time, health, friendships, and sleep. Did they really perceive me in this way? Iniest, feeling let down. Another ding, it was my phone. Yet another communication from Ashley. Excuse me, remember how I advised Mom and Dad to keep everything under Rainbow? The payment process, though, seems to have glitched a little. Rest assured, it will be fixed soon. Take it easy. Just relax. As my eyes were hot from reading the message, I continued to do so. That was intentional. It was all set up, encased in emojis and pretended tenderness. It is a deceit. It went unanswered. That is just not possible for me. Making coffee and sitting silently at the kitchen table, I stared at my empty bank account the following morning. As if to silently accuse the number, looked back. Part of me was on the verge of yelling, in order to get in touch with them again, in order to get an apology, in order to be honest with them. I was aware, though, of their inevitable response. Ashley would be believed. In fact, they had before. Because of this, I settled on a course of action. I ceased transferring funds. There was no prior notice, no justification, no goodbye. If I were to play the villain in their story, I would certainly be the one they didn't anticipate. It had been 2 weeks, later on a month. My parents' lack of reaction was overwhelming. I was getting ready to leave work one evening when suddenly my phone started ringing. Ashley it was. Some part of me wanted to know what she would say, so I debated ignoring it. I responded. Her tone was aggressive and combative. Please tell me why you haven't been returning calls. Lauren, where is the money? Quitting without informing anyone is not an option. That is incorrect. I let the stillness to grow. You knew exactly what you were doing, I answered softly. I don't understand what you're saying. You claimed my payments as your own. You removed 63 cents from my account. And you made them think I was the one being self-centered. As you shared selfies of Dad eating filet mignon and grinned, you allowed them to tear me apart. It wasn't Lauren, you're exaggerating. A simple matter of naming. This is irrelevant. I care, I yelled out. Because you were boasting to your friends about how I was your source of funds. I said, my voice trembling with frustration, while I worked overtime to barely pay rent. Absolute quiet. Just a moment. Who informed you that? she whispered. My name was Nina, I added. Somebody who knows you told her about you. Finally, I have all the information. The voice of Ashley quivered. Please, you have no idea how difficult it is for me. Modeling isn't that simple. Feeling the same way. Having said that you were not truthful, in their eyes, in my opinion. For the sake of your own ego, you devalued me. I ended the call before she could finish speaking. That was it. My pleading for space is over. I have finished elaborating. I am over playing a supporting role in a play for which I did not even try out. They turned me into the villain in a plot that stole my trust money and tranquility. However, at this moment, I got to work reworking the screenplay. In months, I hadn't spoken words with Nina. After graduating from college, life had a way of dragging us in different directions. To new places, new careers, and new mayhem. When I needed someone to tell me the truth without drama or sugarcoating, she was the one I could rely on, nothing but the truth. My parents and Ashley had been through so much, and I needed that more than breath after everything. On a Wednesday night, I sent her a text message. Me, hello. Would lunch sometime this week work for you? Someone with a strong sense of right and wrong ought to be my confidant. Minutes later, her response came in. Nika, uh-oh, that seems risky. Do you want to get together tomorrow? Is it 12:30? Truth and tacos are what I'll bring. We found a peaceful area close to her Manhattan workplace and met there. A small Mexican joint nestled in the middle of a copy store and a laundromat. A half-eaten carnitas taco rested in her hand as she sat down, sunglasses pushed up on her head. She arched an eyebrow the second she laid eyes on me. "Aw, you girl, it seems like you've been gnawing on bricks for quite some time." I mustered up a feeble grin. A draw. It feels more like I'm balancing the deceit of an entire family on my last nerve. No further questions were posed by her. Basically just handed me a taco and motioned for me to sit down. First things first. Myself, I accomplished it. The 63 cents the yelling phone calls the twisted story that cast me as the villain Ashley's plan. The rainbow account, I spilled the beans to her. Like shards of glass on a table, I spread it all out. Nina remained silent, heard it just now. Curled up brow, teeth aligned on a vertical plane. She made a sharp, slow exhalation from her nose as soon as I was done. I am completely at a loss as to how to commence, she remarked. Your younger sister is quite crafty and deceitful. Your folks, too. Oh, no. That's an entirely different level of dysfunction. Leaning forward, she sipped her drink. A woman named Lauren. Tell the truth to me. Are your parents really having financial difficulties, in your opinion? I trembled. According to Ashley, they were in debt. The fact that they were anxious. Nina averted her gaze. Is there evidence that you've seen? I halted. No, I simply trusted her. This, she explained, was our way of repaying them for all the time and effort they had put into raising us. This made Nina scowl. Remember how they refused to pay for your college education? But they sent Ashley to that posh California private school. She covered the costs of her college education and vehicle. Therefore, she was the one who was raised by the additional costs. A thud landed squarely on the chest from the truth. Perhaps I naively believed this was my opportunity to make a difference, in order to behave appropriately as a daughter, at last accomplishing something they would value. I recognized Nina's expression. She made the "you poor sweet idiot" expression. A woman named Lauren. An excellent daughter you are. No, it is not the problem. The problem is that they have conditioned you to think that serving others is the same as receiving love. Hardly did I swallow. She crossed her arms and leaned back. Ashley is someone my friend knows in social circles. I think it was through an influencer brunch circle. She claims Ashley has been spreading the word that she is cut off and that her older sister provides all of her financial support. She warned that except your intervention, she would miss her Botox sessions. Gesturing, I blinked. What is she? Nina nodded, appearing entirely unconcerned. I see. At the last time I heard you've been eating instant noodles and working 12-hour days in a construction vest. It's funny that she said you're boring but rich. Anger began to slowly and steadily build up in my chest. This is unbelievable to me. She made me the object of her phony little life. It's unbelievable. For Nina, it gets worse was the truth. Do you really want to uncover the root of your parents' so-called money problems? Silently, I gazed at her. A new automobile was purchased by them. Vacationed in Aspen, also your father. In the past 2 months, he has been seen 3 times at the casino. I felt queasy. What? I think so. They employ my friend's uncle as a security guard. They claimed your dad is a regular customer who owns the place when playing blackjack. My entire being was deflated. All that cold weather, skipped meals, and extra shifts were just so they could act rich, while I pretended to be stupid. My eyes grew moist as I met Nina's. Why was I blind to it? I thought it was love, so why did I keep giving? My hand was seized by her when she extended her arm across the table. Lauren, it's because you're a decent human being. I'm done. You hoped the best for the individuals entrusted with your safety. You are not weak because of that. It devalues them. Even though my eyes were watering, I could only nod. Nina, I am weary. I am so sick of being the one who gives till I snap. Then cease bending, she admonished. End this cycle. She uttered the words as if they were the most basic truth. Perhaps it really was. Sacrifice was supposed to bring me peace, I thought for a long time. However, nothing changed, just quiet. Being alone. Hidden animosity, concealed by civility. Nina gave my hand a firm squeeze. Your sanity is not owed to them. They have no right to your life savings. You absolutely do not have to explain yourself to them. As if I had been holding my breath for an eternity, I at last let out a breath. You're right, I whispered. She grinned and said, Of course I'm right. Your taco is about to go cold, so eat it now. A fresh chapter in your life awaits you. Weeks went by. No messages. I have not received any messages. No voicemails that make you feel guilty. That stillness just before a tornado makes landfall is terrifying. The next Thursday, as I was getting ready to leave for work, my phone suddenly started flashing. My mother. My thumb lingered over the red button as I glanced at the screen, yet I felt compelled to pick up. I responded. It was as if every word she said had been tucked up in her sharp-clipped voice. Well, at this point, I assume you've had enough of acting. I remained silent. It wasn't necessary. I understood her perfectly. Continued she, I take it you don't want to face consequences since Ashley was honest with us. I take it that you believe that justifies the way you've been acting. I clenched my jaw. It was apparent to her. After undoubtedly coming to the realization that the money had ceased for good, Ashley had finally told them. Possibly she was afraid they would pursue her again, or perhaps her pride couldn't bear another month of quiet. In any case, they were aware. No apology, though, no regrets, assign blame. Your actions have brought shame upon this family, Mom went on to say. allowing everything to crumble in this way. You've made things more complicated when they weren't necessary. I repressed the urge to laugh until a rough, deep laugh formed in my throat, created chaos. What a life! You lied to me, Mom, I stated in a composed manner. Ashley deceived me. I had no idea you spent my hard-earned cash. Furthermore, you branded me a shame after I injured myself attempting to stay up. A considerable pause followed. She lost her temper. Dealing with you has never been easy, maintains that stance. Your sister may have her flaws, but she truly gets loyalty. At that point, it hit me this wasn't a conversation. A sale took place here. They preferred to remain in the dark. They want dominion. A single cent will not be sent, I declared. That is not up to you to decide. Her voice rose to a yell. Lauren, we brought you up. We clothed you and put food in your stomach. At this point, how could you possibly abandon us? I refrained from turning a blind eye. I refrained from saying, you shoved me aside a long time ago. My father's voice then came to my attention. Is Lauren the one? He skipped the confirmation step. Whoever you believe you are, I have no idea. Having such a conversation with your mom, pretending to be indebted to you. He abruptly silenced me just as I was about to speak. You can either submit the payments as scheduled, or else we'll pay off your debt with money from your grandfather's estate. The chamber slanted. Tell me again what you said. With a steely voice, he said, you heard me. Even though your grandpa left money to you, we can still legally access it. Keep in mind your origins. A gasp escaped my lips. He bequeathed that sum of money to me, specifically, without making a sound. At the age of 15, Dad informed me that he had saved some money just in case you ever need to get out. At the time, I took his statement as a metaphor. It seemed as though he had anticipated all of this, though, at this point. I shook my head and warned, you touch that money and I swear. What I heard my mom yell out, are you going to quit chatting with us? My darling, I'll tell you what, do you not already have? Next she spoke it. That one sentence could alter the course of history. A daughter like you is unnecessary. It was like getting slapped in the face by the words. No one yelled, did not weep. I just said it. Totally unfeeling. You don't care about anybody but yourself, without appreciation. She stated that this was how you'd always been. Although she could make mistakes, Ashley is making an effort. That's all you are bitter. I also managed to hold back my tears, which was a first. I was unharmed. The experience left me feeling emotionless. The power seems to have been cut off, as if a last cable had cracked. Tell me what you want to do, I said, but please never again contact me. The call was abruptly ended, motivated by mercy rather than wrath, just for me. As if nothing had transpired, I stood in my hallway clutching my keys and slinging my bag over my shoulder, while the early sun slanted through the blinds. Yet all things had. Someone had crossed a line. Finally, the door closed. Later that night, I finally cracked open the long-hidden box under my bed. I was afraid to open the legal folder that contained letters and a watch that my grandpa had given me. Sure I did. Lauren Elizabeth Ward was typed in bold letters on the inside of the form, which was straightforward and had my name as the only beneficiary of the trust. They couldn't get in legally, not a soul. They pretended to bet. I sat in quiet contemplation after closing the folder. Reasonably speaking, just to clarify, I blamed my inability to move away for my years of self-esteem issues. I had been resilient enough to remain, though. At last I mustered the strength to depart. Something changed inside of me the day following my call with my parents. Neither a major breakdown nor yelling into the emptiness occurred. Simplified, uncluttered, the kind that makes you feel like you just woke up after a long night of sleepwalking. Now that I was an adult, I wasn't merely surviving, I was actually living my life for myself. That was not a performance. I had no interest in seeking acceptance that I would never receive. Who was I? Just me, raw, beaten up, however without cost. At work, no one knew. I refrained from sharing a social media post about my sudden realization. My appearance changed, and that was all. I straightened my back. Every time I had a thought, I stopped apologizing. I ceased contracting, and the public took note. Following a customer meeting, my manager summoned me to his office. After closing the door, he took a seat and uttered, "Whatever it is that has changed recently, keep doing it. I don't know. The business audit for March will be spearheaded by you. This one is huge." I would have expected someone 5 years my senior to get such a project. I nodded, attempting to maintain my composure. While on the inside, my emotions were all over the place. Nina was texted by me that very night. Me, "It seems like my promotion happened in slow motion. Nina, I warned you. You simply needed to let go of the unnecessary baggage you were carrying." She had a point. That credential I got a few months ago. On a professional and financial level, it has now taken effect. It was a raise for me. An extensive benefits package follows. The next step is a transfer offer to the Santa Monica Regional Office. Changing jobs, change in pay, novel postal code. For the first time, it seemed as if I were inhaling pure air. A peaceful 2-bedroom condo a block from the ocean was the one I leased after touring several units in the West. The light was there, but it wasn't flashy. It was tranquil. Plus, I owned it, something I'd wanted for a long time, but was afraid to spend money on a used espresso machine I finally got my hands on. I would stand at the kitchen window every morning, taking my time to sip my coffee while watching the sun rise over the Pacific. Imagined a whole new existence, except that it wasn't. Without the burden of other people's shame pressing down on me, it was only my existence. Finally, I came clean about when I worked on weekends. My reading resumed. Books that are lengthy and filled with soul and quiet. I bravely strolled barefoot down the shore. It wasn't to burn calories that I enrolled in a kickboxing class. It was to burn anger. That was successful. On a Saturday, I was going through some moving boxes when I came upon an old folder. I had created a vision board many years ago, but it was never finished. A beach scene with a woman carrying a briefcase and the words, "Live a life you don't need to recover from," were displayed on it. I just stood there chuckling softly as I stared at it. I was constructing that very existence without even realizing it. Then one day on my way home from work, I noticed a familiar figure standing at the corner outside my building. She had her shoulders hunched and was wearing an overly large coat for her height. Ashley it was. It crossed my mind briefly that maybe I was hallucinating her. She was very different from the one I had known as a child. Her fragile locks contrasted sharply with her weathered face, and her colored blonde hair looked harsh. The accumulation of years had hit her like a ton of bricks, and she seemed to be attempting to hide it with her well-applied makeup. When she laid eyes on me, she froze. Then I remained motionless. She approached me cautiously, her gaze sweeping over my features, my attire, and my recent acquisition, my bag. Saying, "You look different," she continued. Just above a whisper, her voice cracked. It went unanswered. Her gaze lowered to the pavement below. Please tell me if it is okay for me to remain with you, for the time being at least. Gesturing, I blinked. You deceived our parents, Ashley. You deceived me. You turned me into an antagonist in your story. You pissed off not only my time and money, but also my pride. There was no resistance from her, refrained from offering justifications. I didn't think you'd make it without them, she whispered instead. The truth was revealed. The truth, ugly, complicated, delicate. It wasn't her greed that led her to sabotage me. Her belief that I couldn't make it outside of the system in which she flourished drove her to take this action. I had, though. She had become the one who was now exposed to the elements. I inhaled deeply. Ashley, you ought to depart. She stayed out of my way. All she did was nod. I felt a release of some kind as she left. Necessity of seeking vengeance. No more than that. I did something I'd never dared to do before. That night wrote a letter to my grandpa, Uncle Grandpa. You warned that there might come a time when I would require an exit strategy. I was mistaken. Instead of fleeing, I used what you gave me to start over. If only you could see me right now, I pray you would be pleased. There are blossoming violets. Dear loving hello, Lauren. They were, in fact, in every direction, not in landscapes, but in the decisions I make. It was in my demeanor. I used to look forward to getting out of bed in the mornings. This was more than just another opportunity. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alive. A knock came on the door 2 months after Ashley showed up at my doorstep. No, it wasn't she. No, it wasn't my folks. A man in a gray blazer greeted me with a smile that sent shivers down my spine as he held a folder. Emily Ward, he inquired. I trembled. Is that so? We at Westbrook Consumer Finance have you covered. Does the name Charles and Elaine Ward ring a bell? My jaw clenched. I slowly replied, They're my parents. Nevertheless, I did so. His grin wavered. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but it seems like someone has used you as a reference for a loan application. Worst of all, they've gone bankrupt. We are making an effort to restore the equilibrium. Are you open to discussing their present financial situation? I locked eyes with him, frozen in place. I am not acquainted with those individuals, I stated in a very formal manner. I am in no way financially connected to them. They took whatever it was that they needed without my permission. He was taken aback and blinked rapidly. I get it, I see. Your time is greatly appreciated. Without making a fuss, he slipped a business card into my palm and walked away. My heart was pounding as I stood in the doorway for what felt like an eternity after he departed. They had me on their lending list. Attempts to take were ongoing. I contacted Nina later that evening. Upon hearing the second ring, she answered, If this isn't just another family ambush, please tell me. I leaked out a worse sigh. They sought financial gain by utilizing my identity. Once more. Hushedly, she whistled. I am astounded. They persist. What makes you believe they'll return? I believe those kinds of people only give up until there's absolutely nothing more to steal. She was correct. At the time, I had no idea that there was more money trailing after it. A former colleague of mine from our time working together in the New Jersey accounting business contacted me later that week. Some rumor about my dad had gotten into his head. A simple hey appeared in his messages. Remember when your dad was an employee at Union Freight? Oh, of course, I said. At this very moment, I believe he is employed by one of the construction sites, distant from Hoboken. Work during the day, expendable agency materials. At first it seemed confusing. What about my dad? Just going to the grocery store used to be enough to warrant cufflinks, right? Years ago, he was let go from his job, but I thought he had retired early or found some consulting work on the side. Ashley has consistently stated that he discovered that his whole safety net, the severance he got when he quit Union Freight, was gone. He had sent Ashley's fortune to a talent agency that claimed it might help her break into the acting industry. Naturally, the agency was non-existent. A fraud it was. An immaculately staged studio complete with fictitious office area and documents. Just 1 week after the money was sent, they vanished. Almost $60,000 had been wired by my dad. In order to push Ashley's dream forward, my mom had secretly taken out loans and mortgaged their remaining house. And suddenly, it had vanished. Devastated, Ashley hopped from low-level positions, like local ads and promo booths, to cocktail lounges, but nothing stuck. Her once celebrated attitude quickly got her blacklisted in the real world, despite its domestic success. Nina was spotted bartending at a dive pub close to Trenton by one of her friends. That kind of hip-low-lit bar you only see in flicks, a genuine one, featuring broken bar stools, dim lighting, and a jukebox that just played country music from the 1990s. She didn't even resemble Ashley, Nina exclaimed, presenting me with a snapshot. She had slumped forward, her posture flaccid. She had smudged her makeup. Her eyes lost their radiance. "She's transformed," Nina whispered. "She seems confused." A part of me yearned for an emotional response. Feeling down, feelings of regret, anger, what a shame. But I sensed nothing more than space. I didn't mean the icy, heartless kind. Rather, I meant the physical separation that had resulted from the passage of time and the healing process. My parents' bankruptcy was something I learned about later on. After selling the property, they relocated to a modest apartment in a development for low-income seniors. Vacations are over, fine eating is out, bills and complete quiet. Interestingly, the construction firm where my dad eventually took a dispatch job is actually the same one where I worked weekend shifts to help support my family. The sarcasm was beautiful. A coworker who I know from my time there texted me one day, "Hey, an arbitrary inquiry. Charles Ward was your dad's name?" Fixated on the screen, I gazed. "Indeed. Tell me why. He may be an employee here now. We began last week." Sparsely described his daughter's past employment as a security guard. Claimed she put in far too much time for her own benefit. I kept my fingers tethered to the keyboard. It went unanswered. Ashley, on the other hand, was always changing bars, going through firings, rehires, and let go again. The combination of stress booze and the harsh truth of her years of entitlement was quickly eroding her once powerful beauty. Someone once told me, when you're unreliable, nobody cares how beautiful you are. They had a point. I didn't despise her, though. No more. I sensed a level of empathy, yet one maintained at a respectful distance. As if standing on shoreline and saw a ship go down, while knowing you tossed a lifeboat over once, just to be kicked out. No one ever contacted me. She doesn't, ignoring them. For some, remaining silent is a sign of animosity. But what about me? Quietness reigned, developed and protected. Their linchpin was no longer me, and as soon as I did, everything fell apart. It has been 5 years. When you let go of the past, life has a curious way of reassembling itself. In Miami, I was seated on a bench at a little white chapel that overlooked the water. There was a gentle sea-kissed breeze. The tall windows let in the sunlight, which turned the room a golden hue. Nina was getting married that day. Her beautiful beauty shone through her elegant satin dress, as her eyes gleamed with the rare blend of happiness and calm assurance that can only be achieved when you find someone who sees you for who you really are. With his hands folded and a constant smile on his face, her husband Evan stood by her side. Although our acquaintance was brief, it was sufficient. His expression was completely conveyed by Nina's gaze. The ritual was uncomplicated, honest. There will be no dramatic flourishes or forced speaking. Nothing more than a couple making repeated commitments to select each other. Wearing a dress I had purchased solely for the purpose of making myself feel nice, I sat near the front. At this point, self-assurance felt as comfortable as an old favorite garment. This is not a play, nothing to hide. After the vows were said and the celebratory music subsided into gentle jazz, Nina made her way over to the reception to see me. Her eyes gleamed as she described the person she wanted you to meet. That made me giggle. On your wedding day, you're not playing matchmaker seriously. Just say no. She simply shrugged her shoulders. You allowed me room to develop. I will gladly do the same for you. After that, she pivoted, and a guy whose face I didn't recognize stood behind her. He had a towering stature, a sun-kissed complexion, and sleeves that were turned up to reveal muscular forearms. The crookedness of his smile added charm. It betrayed his genuine and easygoing laughter. Nick Nina introduced him. He's Evan's pal, building designer. He is the boss of his own Santa Barbara corporation. A hand was extended by Nick. So, you're the Lauren, he remarked, his smile causing an unexplained sinking sensation in my gut. I suppose it's relative to what you're aware of, I responded. His laughter filled the air, a piece of cake, minimal disruption, real. As the laughter and dancing filled the air, we conversed with champagne and the fresh sea air. The fact that I felt completely secure was more surprising than our amicable relationship, the way it is perceived. Nick had little interest in learning about my background. He made no effort to wow me. I was reading some books when he inquired about them. The cities that piqued my interest, the initiatives that brightened me up at work. No matter how esoteric the details were, he listened as if they didn't interest him. He took me to the beach later on. As the sky gradually became lavender, we stood barefoot in the sand. Looking at me, his eyes were gentle. Are you always relaxed like this? He inquired. No, I responded with a smile. I worked for it, though. For the first time in months, I wrote in my journal that night, while I laid in my hotel room. Returning to my pre-hurt self was what I used to believe was necessary for healing. Instead, it falls short. To heal is to transform into a new person capable of enduring hurt, growing from it, and continuing onward. She's now me. It brought to mind my grandpa. I was hoping he'd be pleased. Again, you promised that the violets would blossom. Indeed, they have, and I didn't feel alone for the first time ever. My belief that love necessitated giving one's life was deeply held for quite some time. I had to compromise in order to be an excellent daughter, sister, and person. Decrease in size, keep going until I vanished. What I really wanted to hear sooner, though, was this truth. Loving someone without limits isn't love. Command is it, depending on someone. It's coercion, cloaked in shame and responsibility. As a kid, I believed that the test of my worth was how much I could take, how silent I could be, what I could give freely without expecting anything in return. I let others to paint a picture of me for a long time, and I never even picked up a pen. Up until the moment I did, and that was the turning point. It was difficult to separate from my family. The place was filthy. Apologies were not extended. There were no major makeups. I began to breathe again in that empty room. What I've realized is that it's possible to feel sorrow for a living person. A relationship that was never what you imagined it would be might nonetheless cause you pain. That is something I used to feel guilty about. No longer, though. Keeping your peace isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength, I've realized. Just because you say no doesn't mean you're being rude. That leaving can be the most loving thing to do at times. And if anyone is listening who is struggling to balance responsibility with dignity, I have something to say to you personally. You don't have to keep bleeding to prove you care. Those who are stubborn and unwilling to change are not your problem to solve. You don't have the authority to lend money. A bandage is not you. You are not a hero to another person. You are free to make your own decisions in order to recover, to grow, to flourish without being consumed by your history. True love doesn't require you to shatter yourself in order to receive it. Limits won't make them go away. They'll make an honest attempt to meet you where you are and do it with grace. What about the rest? Send them tumbling. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean you have to stay in an unhealthy relationship. Family isn't defined by blood relations. Attendance is key. Listeners are key. Someone who will stand by you no matter what. Those who support your development will cheer you on even if it means you surpass them. The lesson is that one for which I shed blood. And if telling this story here helps someone else avoid experiencing the same pain, then perhaps it had been worthwhile. Because I have learned, forget about trying to erase the hurt. It's about creating a life free from that pain's control, a life that is entirely yours. And now at long last mine does as well.